Hello! Welcome to Levels Plus Weekly episode 32. And this episode is going to be a much happier experience compared to the last one, because I won't be talking about just mean-spirited and misogynistic companies. Yay! Instead, we're going to talk about a lot better stuff, including Arietta of Spirits. I want to do a little mini review of that. I want to talk about the latest Metroid Dread trailer and its spoilerific contents. And for September, I'm thinking that I want to do a theme. I think I want to talk about the arcade experience. Kim Justice recently put up a video on her top 100 arcade games of all time, and it got me thinking about how much the arcade really influenced me to be into video games. So I want to spend some time doing some personal history stuff on the arcade experience. So I think that'll be fun. But in terms of structure, what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about Arietta first. I'm going to talk about the arcade piece in the middle, and then Metroid Dread at the end. So if people don't want to talk about the spoilers, which I would understand, they can bail and not have to watch the last part. So that will be how we do today. And I'm shooting this on Labor Day, and it's going up on Labor Day because I decided to take an extra day off. And so I'm going to try to keep my edits to a minimum so I could just get this up and be happy with the overall vibe of the video. So let's talk about Arietta of Spirits. It's a indie action-adventure game that came out on the Switch and the PS4, and it was published by Red Art Games and was developed by Third Spirit Games. And without getting into this story too much, I will say that it is a very, very charming, emotional tale of a teenage girl named Arietta who discovers that she has the ability to talk to spirits and interact with the spirit world while she's on a camping trip with her parents, and her family is undergoing grief at the loss of the grandmother, whose cabin that they're staying at used to belong to. And so there's a lot there in terms of some emotional weight and some significant feels, but it's not like Spiritfarer, it's not like Gris, it's not like Celeste, it's not that, I'm not going to say powerful, but it didn't hit me as hard, we'll just say. It's very well done, the writing is solid, and the overall narrative is compelling and interesting, but I do feel that there could have been more done. And I think the biggest thing, honestly, the biggest little thing about Arietta of Spirits is I wish there was a little bit more interaction with your parents, because you kind of start talking to them and then in the middle of the game you don't really have to. It's becomes side quest material, and then at the right before the very end you're interacting with them, and then that's it. So I do wish that there was a little bit more of that dynamic at play, but that's really the only issue I have with the game, beyond one other thing, which I will get to when I talk about the combat system. But the graphics are charming. I love the sprite work. It's very well animated, and it has different areas that have a different vibe, which I really like. It's not a very big game. You can probably beat it in about 5 hours if you are pretty thorough at exploring everything. There's some stuff that I didn't get to, but overall I was very satisfied. The music is good. It's nothing too revolutionary or exciting, but it fits the bill. I think it works just fine. And the biggest piece, of course, is the gameplay. And Arietta has a couple different means of attack. She has her sword, and she has a shield, basically. And They unlock as you go. And the sword needs just a touch more range. Just the tiniest extra bit. Because one thing about these overhead action adventure games that the original Zelda managed to do on the NES is get the range just right. And I feel like Arietta's sword swipe is just a tad too short, so you kind of have to get in there to fight enemies, and it can get a little cheap feeling at times because you swear that you're close enough, but you're not, and then the enemy runs into you while you're recovering from that slash animation. I suppose that's where the shield would come in, or the roll. The roll is not like a Dark Souls roll where you're like invincible through all of it, though. So it's not a perfect means of counteracting that, and I don't think you can interrupt your sword swipes with either of those. But on the whole, yeah, Finn's coming here to add his thoughts. On the whole, Arietta of Spirits is a great little indie title. And if you're looking for kind of a bite-sized action-adventure game that has enough narrative hooks to kind of get you into it, as well as a great visual style and overall just like a good gameplay loop, even though it's a little flawed, I highly recommend it. I really enjoyed it. And the cool thing is that they did a bit of a sequel tease at the end, which I hope can refine a little bit of the story and combat elements that I wanted to have just a bit more of, and just really take this into a super awesome place. It's already a really awesome game, but it could be super awesome, and I think that they built a nice foundation here. So if you haven't checked it out, I'd recommend just booting it up and see what you think of it. There is a demo on the Switch eShop. It's very short, but it was enough for me to get a sense of what it was going to play like. So, really cool game. After our little cat intermission break, which Finn's still here, so I guess you're getting extra cat time today. Let's talk about the arcade. So, I wouldn't be into video games at all if not for the arcade, honestly. The earliest experiences that I had playing games was on the ColecoVision and in the arcade. Technically, the arcade I'm referring to is the grocery market where my mom worked at when I was very young. They had two cabinets there. They had Donkey Kong and Zaxxon, which is kind of why the Donkey Kong cart's there and the Astro City Mini's there, even though that doesn't have Zaxxon on it. But I also played Ladybug in the arcade in ColecoVision as well. But that particular cabinet was not at the same grocery store. I remember playing it. So I was about 3 probably when I started goofing around with these cabinets. And I just remember spending a lot of time as a child while that market was open playing Donkey Kong and Zaxxon. Both of which are excellent games. Donkey Kong is still in my top 111, and I am so happy that we finally have an arcade perfect port on something that's not an unlockable or a timed bonus. Nintendo. Granted, there is some litigation about Donkey Kong with Nintendo's original development partner on a lot of those early games, which is why they weren't released very often, but that seems to have been resolved. But The original Donkey Kong is still a marvelous game. I think it's one of the most important video games ever made. Not just in terms of introducing Mario to the world, but it really just kind of set the stage for the platforming adventures that Nintendo would follow for decades, as well as influencing many, many other developers to take a stab at that type of gameplay. And while its premise is really sexist by having a ripped off King Kong plot, basically, where Jumpman must save his girlfriend Pauline from Donkey Kong, which was probably the biggest progenitor of the trope of rescuing a woman as a story device in video games, which Nintendo 1983 to 86 is almost done, so you'll get to read more on that soon, which is very exciting. But ultimately, despite the very, very poor narrative thread that Nintendo just kept coming back to, the rest of the game is 100% solid, and I really do love it. It's such a cool game, and the arcade version is the best way to play it. You get all 4 stages, you get extra graphics, you get a taller stage, so there's more gameplay room, so it actually changes it a lot from how the NES Famicom version worked, and a lot of other ports. It's just an exquisite game. So I just have so many memories of playing that in the arcade, and have really yearned to actually have that experience in the home, which I finally can, thanks to Hamster. Zaxxon is, I think that came out in 1982. That's a Sega game where it's isometric, and you are a ship craft. Pretend my hand is the craft, and you're kind of looking like this, but you're going upwards. So just pretend that it's flipped around, and you go up and down an elevation in this isometric perspective, and you have to knock out obstacles on the ground, and then you have in between space fights, and then you get to another station that you have to blow up stuff. As a kid, I never really got past that first part because I didn't fully understand the up and down part, so I often would run into things. But Zaxxon's a pretty cool game. I wouldn't say it's the greatest shoot 'em up I've ever played, and I wouldn't say it's even Sega's greatest shoot 'em up. Granted, they didn't make a ton of those once they got out of the 80s, but it's still a good game, and it's one that I have a lot of memories playing as a kid, and just being really impressed at how it looked, and just that capturing that essence of space combat in a way that I think just really clicked with my young brain. And both of those games really touched me and really made me want to do more with games. Eventually the ColecoVision left the house and went to my uncle. Unfortunately, due to circumstances outside of his control, it broke. Otherwise, I would have asked him for it back. But I got an NES in 1986, 87. I don't remember the exact year. It's the same one that is hanging out up there somewhere. And that would kick the door open for me to really get into games and make it like my passion, which I think has been quite obvious that I've recorded 32 episodes of this show and wrote a blog on it since 2001. So, and have a second book coming out on games specifically. So the arcade brought this hobby to me, brought this passion. It was Donkey Kong and it was Zaxxon, and Ladybug to a lesser extent. that really got me wanting to play more stuff, to try out different things. And Donkey Kong was such a huge influence that it basically made me want to go Nintendo for most of my life, despite, Pauline. I like the way that their games play, and I like a lot of the things that they do. They're not a perfect company. They do stuff that is... they're a little aggressive on protecting their IP. They've been pretty on fire about that lately. They sit on their IP for too long sometimes, as the aforementioned Donkey Kong arcade experience attests. And they're not perfect, they're not ideal, but they do make some good games, and they are my favorite company in the industry. And while there's things about them that I wish they did better or did differently, on the whole, Donkey Kong made me a fan, and it's just been the way that it is. Alright, well, next time I'm going to talk about Street Fighter and Capcom fighting games, because I think that's the next really big piece of my arcade evolution. So we'll talk about that next week. So, if you do not want any Metroid Dread spoilers from the second trailer, bail out now. We're going to cat intermission, and then going to just jump right into watching the trailer and talking about it, as well as how wise it is to actually do trailers like this. So, if you are jumping out, have a great week. If you are hanging out a bit longer, I'll see you after the break. Hey, wait a second. This isn't Metroid Dread at all. This is my book. What's this doing here? Yes, I actually put it here. I wanted to have a little bit of extra buffer in case people wandered off and didn't realize that this was happening. So yes, Metroid Dread Trailer 2 discussion will begin in a second, but I just want to say that I'm really proud of this book. I haven't shown off this section yet. The really cool thing is that the book is pretty close to being done. All I have left to do is the cover, and I'm having a friend look over it, and her impression so far is that this is awesome. And she's not into games all that much, but just on a visual design, she's really digging it. So when she gets time, she's gonna look over the words and make sure that everything is set up well and reads well, especially for someone who doesn't play games. So that is a big goal and why I asked her to check it out. So I will hopefully have some news on its release in the next few weeks, and when that happens, we'll definitely do another video looking at it. But we are not here to talk about my book. We are here to talk about Metroid Dread. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on a loop, and we're going to watch it. I'm not going to commentate. There will be no sound because I am trying to minimize getting into problems. And I'm just going to let it play, and then we're going to talk about it. So here we go. Last chance. All right. So with the Metroid Dread Trailer 2, we get a lot of exposition. So we finally see the Chozo warrior, who is just pretty awesome looking. So it makes this little piece of art that we saw make more sense, because this apparently is the same character. But this game, it shows off so much gameplay. That dash is brand new to the series. There's Kraid. Yeah, he's back. We got underwater problems. Uh-oh. We got ice missiles. We've got new bombs. There's the melee counter in story. Grapple beam's back. You can do all kinds of cool stuff with it. Oh, that's a lot of things. Oh, look at this. You can shoot multiple missiles now. And more on the dash. Then we get the speed booster, the gravity suit, the screw attack, Spazer beam. There's so much going on in this trailer that we've learned so much of the equipment. And then we see this, and then Samus's eyes get real big and everything goes red. And that's where the trailer ends. So, yes, this is an incredible hype trailer, and I am so down to play more of this game. Actually, to play this game. I haven't played it yet, so I can't even say more here. It's just an incredible, incredible trailer. And the problem with this incredible trailer is that it sure tells you a lot. Honestly, I would have probably been okay with the intro and like 80% less gameplay than what's featured in this thing. Because they've just got an incredible amount of stuff they haven't shown. Showing off Kraid and showing off like a large chunk of the arsenal that Samus is going to acquire in this game sure seems like a lot. It really seems like a lot to me. I know why they did it, because it was to generate hype. But I think that the hype falls into a couple different camps. Metroid Dread is currently shaping up to be the most successful Metroid game ever in terms of pre-orders and interest. This game has done what seemingly has been impossible for Nintendo to figure out, which is to get people interested in a Metroid game outside of the Metroid fan base. They've done that. They've done it quite well. And I think that's who this trailer is for. It's not for the fans. It's for those who don't know much about Samus and her quests so far, and to get them interested in this game, and to get them wanting to play Dread, and to get more interest outside of the fan base. And it does a really good job. I mean, like, if I wasn't a fan and I saw this trailer, I would be like, oh, I need to play this. This looks incredible. Like, look at how fluid she moves, and look at all the cool things she can do, and this bad guy is intimidating, and what's with the big monster guy? Like, that's what this trailer was designed to do. However, for people who care about the lore, for people who care about Samus's story, this trailer really is not for you, because this trailer shows off the types of things that players want to discover on their own because of the history of the series. I feel like Kraid is a huge, huge revelation here. To the point that he should have probably been what ended the trailer. Just a brief snap of him. Not as much as we actually see in this trailer. I feel like seeing all of these new power-ups, and so many returning ones, it kind of takes some of the excitement away about, well, what is Samus going to be able to do in this game? Because we get a really good sign of what Samus is going to be able to do in this game watching this trailer.
and we see a lot of the Chozo warrior. And I think that since it's all in the intro, that we're not really losing anything by watching it. But it does basically show that, yes, we're dealing with the Chozo in a way that we've never really dealt with them in this series. And that, I think, is the strongest thing about this trailer that I like as a fan of the series who has played the majority of the games. And it also makes me wonder what that bit at the end with Samus reopening her eyes and looking really intense is all about. But in terms of spoilery trailers, did this ruin the game for me? No, it did not. It actually did do its job, and I am extremely hype for Metroid Dread, even more than from the E3 trailer. And that's for a few different reasons. One, it looks better. This actually is perhaps the nicest looking Metroid game ever made in terms of aesthetics and background detail. This looks so much better than the E3 trailer, like infinitely better. Like watching the backgrounds and all the fluidity and stuff, it looks incredible, and it has color, so that's not really a concern. I'm gonna put a caveat on that and say 3D Metroid games in terms of the visuals. Because it's really hard for me to say that Super Metroid and Fusion and Zero Mission don't look as good as this in their 2D forms, because I think they do. But in terms of a 3D game, the closest I can say is Prime 1, and this looks better than Prime 1. So that's my barometer, in case you're wondering. But Nintendo does have a habit of doing trailers like this, usually not quite this early, because we still got, as of today at least, a month and a few days before this game comes out. But this trailer came out 2 weeks ago. Just didn't really have time to talk about it the last couple weeks. They've done this with Zelda. They've done it with Fire Emblem. They do these trailers to try to generate hype with like higher intensity and emotional story beats and like gameplay revelations. But it kind of works against the fan base, because the fan base wants to just see new stuff without having story bits or like character revelations or anything like that. So it's tricky. I mean, like, I still watch this stuff because I want to be engaged and I want to be able to potentially talk about stuff. And this trailer is really, really awesome. And I think that it served its goal. It got people talking about this game even more. But I think that there's also a lot more negative discussion about how this trailer just goes in and doesn't really care if you're into it or not. So that's my final piece on Dread. I think that the game looks amazing. I can't wait to play it next month. I'm so excited that I managed to get the amiibo and the collector's edition for it. I got very lucky, and I realized that. I'm liking Samus' suit design the more I see it. I think it's really cool looking. I'm loving all this new mechanics and gameplay stuff that they're adding into this game. And to actually be able to deal with the Chozo, I think, is a really good way to end this. And something that's also really interesting is that you don't see the Emmy at all in this trailer. They're not even here. So I think that it's a really interesting counterbalance between, you know, you're going to be dealing with these robots, but this is like not the whole game. It's just part of a grander experience. And I'm very excited to see how it all comes together. So Metroid Dread perhaps did too much with this trailer, but on the whole, it still ultimately succeeded in making me extremely excited to play the game next month. So, that's the end of Levels Plus Weekly for this week. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on Arietta. I hope that you enjoyed my memories of arcades and just what a trailer and the discussion about spoilers. It's going to be really exciting when Metroid Dread comes out. I'm so, it's like right now my most anticipated game for the rest of the year, without question. So just can't wait. Really cannot wait. Thanks again. I hope you have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week. We will talk about the Capcom fighters that I've played and whatever else I feel like talking about. We'll see what happens throughout the week. Till then, friends, take care.